friends, so this will be our door project tutorial. I'm doing it on a Mac. I'll try again and remember to speak both sets of keyboard shortcuts as we work through some of the basic tools you'll use to translate a two-dimensional drawing in scale up into Vectorworks. Okay, so that's what we're kind of adding to the mix. We've done the logos, those are all not in any particular scale. This door will now be in scale. So first I'm going to show you some stuff on paper and then I'll jump into Vectorworks. So this is your assignment sheet. You should have a copy of this. If you don't, it's posted up on whatever learning management system you're working from. This is the basic idea, right? You're going to start with a picture of a door. You're going to measure the outlines of the shapes of that picture, okay? The picture you receive will be in scale. And I would recommend getting a sheet of tracing paper, drawing those major lines, and then measuring with your scale rule those distances on your hard copy. So that's your step one, is to lay out what this door looks like and get your major measurements figured out. And then you'll be drafting it, right? And this is an example of the level of detail I'm expecting from your drafting. So then you'll be drafting it on Vectorworks itself in scale, okay? There are 3 door options I'm giving you. So door 3, door 2, door 1, they're all provided as PDFs for you. So if you don't have a hard copy provided by me, then you can go up online and print that out yourself. As long as you print it out in 100% scale, you should be pretty close. So we are going to do the trickiest one of the 3 that I've given you together. I'm going to walk through some of the tools I would use to draft this door in 2D. And it's got an arch, it's got some other stuff going on, and I will do that now in Vectorworks. So you'll see me doing measurements and stuff in Vectorworks as well. And then I will talk through the drawing tools and how I use them to draft. Okay friends, here we are in Vectorworks. I am in sort of the center of my page on a new file. So I went to File, I created a new document using that template we've been using so far. I'm in the scenery layer as we have been before, and I just brought in this piece of paper so that I have it as a reference. And so you can see sort of what I'm measuring and how I work through my process. I'm gonna go ahead and save this first so that I know I have it somewhere and don't lose it. So let's just get into Vectorworks and save it. And we're going to call it my name, door project. Okay, great. So now that's in a place and it will auto save now that I've saved it once. So let's start in on this drafting. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do anytime I'm drafting an object is grab the measurements of the bounding box that cover the whole item. So I'm going to just see how wide this thing is in total and how tall it is in total, and create a rectangle that has those dimensions as my first item, okay? So let's go back, pick up our rectangle tool. That's keyboard shortcut 4, or you can come up here and click it with your mouse. So I want to make a rectangle that is 6 foot 6 1/8 by 8 foot 7/8. Because I am designing this to be built, this is a place where I might actually round those numbers to like a round inch number, and that's totally fine for you to do. So as you measure, if you find that like things are kind of off of what maybe would make sense as a round number for distances, feel free to round them because you're going for exactly the same look, not necessarily exactly the same measurements. So I'm going to start by making a rectangle that is that size. In the past, we haven't drawn anything to scale, so this is how, when you're in Vectorworks, you want to get those scale things. You'll start by clicking to draw the first point of your rectangle, okay? Then you'll hit Tab, and when you do that, it pops up into this little window where it gives you triangle X and triangle Y. So triangle is the Greek symbol delta. Delta in math means change, so you're looking for change in X, change in Y, and they're all relative to the standard coordinate system. So if I start at this point and I want to go up and over to the right, then I will use positive numbers, but if I wanted to go backwards towards the left, I would use negative numbers. That's just the way that this change in X and Y box is going to work. So my change in X is going to be 6'6", and I type that in, 6 foot 6 inches. I hit tab again to do this change in Y, and I'll type that in as well on my keyboard. So 8 foot, and it says 0 and 7/8. We're just going to call it 8 feet even. So 8 foot. I hit tab again. You'll notice now that I've hit tab twice, I have bright red lines, and when I move my mouse around, my rectangle doesn't change sizes. So I've basically locked in those two measurements. And then I can click with my mouse and it will create the rectangle that is that shape, okay? So now I have the bounding box around the outside of my whole door, and I can go in then and start building out the rest of the shapes to create this total look, okay? So some of the tools I'll use, right? Generally, I'll use a lot of rectangles in order to build the shapes that I need. I'll measure how big those rectangles are. I'll also eyeball the space. In this case, there's this border that kind of goes around the whole outside. We'll talk about how to do that. We'll also talk about using the arc tool to get these curved top edges, which is one of the trickier things. And then lastly, I want to show you how to use the mirror tool, because then you only would have to draw like one side of this door panel situation. And once you've drawn it once, you can mirror it over to the other side, which is kind of great. So let's start with getting sort of this outside shape drawn, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, and again, a lot of the time I'll be drawing construction lines. I'll be drawing rectangles that I'll delete later, but they'll help me to get where I'm going as I draw these shapes, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do this top arc first, and then we'll come in to get these inside pieces, right, for this piece of molding. So to get the arc, I need a new dimension, and that's the height from the base, so from all the way down here at the bottom up to that point where the curve starts. So that's looks like it's 6'8.5". I'm going to use a rectangle to give myself a marker for that. I don't really care about the X dimension, so I'm just going to hit tab and not change it. But I do care about the Y. That's that 6'8.5". So 6'8.5 inches. Okay, hit tab again. Now I have that point. Okay. I'm going to do this arc right now, so I want to have one of these on the other side. So this is a time when I'm going to hit my X key to get back to my pointer tool, and I'm going to just use Command D to make a copy of that rectangle. Again, I'm deleting these rectangles as soon as I'm done making this arc, but I'm going to pop that one over there. Okay, so what this has done is given me an intersection to snap to on either end of the arc I'm about to draw, and then the center of that arc will be up here on the top edge of this rectangle, okay? So I'm gonna go pick up my arc tool. It's right over here. It would be also the keyboard shortcut 3. There are a bunch of different ways to draw arcs, okay? There are just a ton of different options. The one I like to use, and this is the one we'll use again when we get to the theater drafting, is this point on arc mode, where if you read all of the instructions, it says, click to define the starting point of the arc. The end point will be created with a second click. So your first click is the starting point, your second click is the end, and then the third click is a point along the arc. So what that'll let me do when I select it is I can click in this intersection, I can click in this intersection, and then I can click top center, and now I have this arc shape, okay? So that will give me now this rectangle, right, with this arc inside of it. So my next step is going to be, I want to create this vector shape of inside without the little extra pieces. So I'm going to select both of these objects. I'm going to go to modify and combine into surface. I'm going to click inside, and let's see if that gave us the shape I want. Did it? No, it didn't really. Oh, it kind of did. We're getting there. Okay, so that gave me part of the shape I wanted. And now let's see. Let me see what happens when I remove all of this. Add surface. There we go. Okay. So now I have one shape that includes all of those parts and pieces. And I can remove this rectangle. I do not need it anymore. Let's see if this actually does what I want, which is to allow me to use the offset tool to do this border around the whole outside edge, right? So you'll notice this molding comes across here and here, and then goes all the way down to the very bottom edge, okay? So my goal would be to create that offset that would trace along those lines. So I'm going to use my offset tool and let's see if it works, right? So if you remember, your offset tool is going to be over here, right here, okay? I need a distance for that offset, so before I pick up that offset tool, I want to actually measure that piece of molding. What you got? 7 inches, great. Okay, so pick up my offset tool, change the distance to 7 inches, okay? And then we hold down Command. Is that right? Yeah, we hold down Command or Control on a PC. Maybe, maybe not. Let's select it before we pick up the offset tool and see if it's happier with me. There we go. And it now has created this shape inside. That's great. I like it. Okay. So that now has given me that 7-inch border all the way around inside. So that covers me for all of this stuff, right? I can extend a line coming down from each of those sides. I can just create a rectangle that fits underneath it for that board at the bottom. And when I zoom in like this, right, I'm gonna get a smart point. So now it'll keep that shape for me. And we're getting there, right? So we're starting to see the shape of this door come together. So I'm gonna just now delete this. The only other line I'm missing on that outside border is this diagonal line on the trim. And for that, I'll just use the line tool, right? So again, that's gonna be 2 is your keyboard shortcut, but we're just gonna draw it in, okay? X key, back to my cursor. Okay, so those are the major outside pieces. Great, cool, right? So that gives me this whole shape. Now I want to divide into in the inside in order to create this curved edge on the top of my door, get my center door in place, and then we'll build each of these this one side and mirror it to the other side, okay? So some things I know, right? I know I need a rectangle here for this piece of trim, and it actually kind of connects up to that top edge, but I'm going to divide it out separately. So I'm going to just create that rectangle and trim it off at that arc edge in order to give me those pieces of trim on either side of the door. Let's measure the width of the door to start, right? So let's just see where we're at on the door. It's about 3 feet for the door width. Great. And then let's measure the width of this piece of trim. 1 7/8. So let's call it 2 inches. Okay. So I'm going to put a 3-foot rectangle right in the middle here, and then I'm going to add in those 2-inch trim pieces. So I'm going to actually draw it outside and move it into the shape. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do 3-foot rectangle, so it's 3 feet wide. I don't know exactly how tall it is. It looks like it's probably, you know, less than 7 feet tall. 6'8" is a standard door. So let's just say 6'10" to know we have some room to move. I hit enter, it locks those two in, and then I click with my mouse to set it. And then I can pick it up using my bottom center snapping point. I pick it up when my cursor looks like a plus sign, and I snap it to the top center of that rectangle. So that'll set it down right into the middle of this shape, okay? We're gonna quickly take these two shapes. I'm gonna cut out the inside one so that I can put this door behind my piece of molding. So I'm selecting the inside shape and the outside shape. I'm going to modify clip surface as we've done before, and then I'm gonna just delete that inside one. That will allow me to send this to the back, right? Which was, I believe, Command B, but let's go look and make sure we are correct. Yep, so Command B, Control B on a Mac, or on a PC, sorry. So that'll send that to the back behind the other shape, okay? I'm I'm gonna make this a little taller just to make sure we're good. Then when it's behind, right, first so I can click over here and I don't see that top edge, so we know we're good. But when it's behind, I'm actually gonna select the outline piece and I'm gonna clip surface again to trim off that extra spot, right? There we go. So now I have that shape, great. Let's do that 2-inch rectangle piece of trim, okay? So I'm gonna start now over in this corner. I'm gonna snap right in there. The X dimension is 2 inches. The Y dimension I don't really care about as long as I'm kind of inside of here because I'm gonna trim it, again, I'm gonna trim it off when it's underneath that other piece. And then I'm gonna send it to the back, Command B. I'm gonna hit my X key, select that outside piece of trim, modify, clip surface again, okay? So there it is, beautiful. Now I'm gonna mirror this to the other side, and that uses this picture here, this tool right here, the mirror tool, right, which has 2 little arrows pointing over a line. When you pick up the mirror tool, it has 2 modes, right? The first mode, standard mode, right, will flip something over to the other side of the mirror line, but it'll delete the original object. So if you aren't in this duplicate mode, you want to switch to duplicate mode up here, okay? And then once you're in duplicate mode, when you create that mirror line, it'll keep the original and it'll just add another one on the other side. So because we're all centered up over here, we should be able to mirror across the center line. I am going to snap to one of these center points, right? And then you'll notice it kind of floats around and it's mirroring across this line. In order to keep this line perfectly vertical, I'll hit Shift, hold Shift down, click again, and there we go. So now I've mirrored that piece of trim across to the other side, okay? Great, so that's here. So now we have these 2 pieces, we have the main shape of the door. Let's do one side of the little windows, and then you can continue using your mirror tool, your offset tool, to finish out the rest of the details on your door. So let me come in here. I'm just gonna get a rough dimension for the offset from here to here, right? Let's see what that's gonna be. Let's get it a little guesstimate that will go. So let's say 2 3/8. Let's say 2.5, just for fun, will be the dimension we use. Coming over here. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do with this void of space, right, is there's obviously a gap here in the center, but no shape. So if I go to select and I hold down Option on a Mac, it might be like, I don't know what Option is on the PC, sorry, not off the top of my head. I can select everything that I touch instead of everything that's inside my box. And then I can go back up here to combine into surface. Remember, we've done this before. And I can click into that shape, and now it's created a shape of that interior space, okay? So I wanna do that first, then I can use my offset tool with that 2.5-inch dimension as the distance, 2.5, and create that interior rectangle, okay? So if you look over here, that's pretty good, right? Now I can just kind of go through, figure out the height of each of these individual windows, put those rectangles in, make sure I put in this last panel, finish out that space, okay? As I go through, I might do things with little rectangles, right? So it might be okay, 7 inches, right? I let it snap there, I hit tab, I say -2 inches for the piece of trim here, right? And then I can create all of those shapes by adding together pieces from before, right? So if I wanted all of this to be connected the way that it is, what I would do here is I would select these 2, right? I would go up to Modify, Clip Surface. That would take this center rectangle out, right? Then I can take these 2, this rectangle I've added and this outside shape, and I can say Modify, Add Surface, and now I have that look that I want, okay? And I'll do the same thing with a couple more little rectangles, right? So let's say I like this sort of 1 foot height here. I can click, let me hit escape to get back out. I can click up here, I can leave it at that 7-inch width, and I can use the -1 foot in the Y dimension, make a 1 foot tall rectangle, then I can make a little 2-inch rectangle after that, right? -2 inches, click, and I can continue adding those 2-inch rectangles to that outside trim using add surface, all right? So let's do maybe one more of those. I can select this, Command D, pick it up, snap it into that corner, do another little 2-inch rectangle underneath it, right? Same steps again, and make one more of those down here, okay? And I don't know if a foot is the right height. It might be too tall. It might be taller than I actually want these windows to be, but you can confirm that on yours, okay? I'm not gonna go too crazy right now. Thank you very much. Right, it might be better if they were like a little bit less. So now I have these 2 more little rectangles, and I'll select them and add them to this surface as well. Great. So now that I've done all of this, right, I have my outside edge, I have my 3 little windows, I can select them. I kind of like how that bottom panel turned out. I think it's fine. So we're gonna let that all be okay for now. And I've selected all of this together. This is a point where I might group these things together so that they stay stuck together. So I might use Command G to group that set of objects, and then I will use my mirror tool. Once again, I'll pick up my mirror tool, find that center mark, hold down Shift, and mirror it across to the other side, okay? You can continue in this way using offset, right? Using clip surface, using combine into surface to create shapes inside of shapes, and then using add surface to put those building blocks together in order to create the actual vector objects, the solid objects that you need as you continue building out the shapes of your door. Anytime it's like, I need a little edge line, right? That's a time to use the offset tool. So that one will come in handy for all of these little bits of trim, right? If you want to really finish all of that stuff out, feel free to do so. So those are my basic tools that I'd like you to try, basic tools and strategies on a door project. Some of your options don't have all of these curves. They are just rectangles, but this is the one I think that's the most complicated, so that's the one I walked you through. All right, friends, let me know if you have questions, and I will talk to you all soon. Thanks.